guys, it's Jess and it's Sunday and this is my first video in the last 3 weeks that is actually on time, so I'm really sorry about that. And as well, I haven't really had the time to put a lot of effort into them, and you know, there's no excuses to be made. That's my fault, I should have made time. But yeah, so at the minute I'm in Hungary and currently I'm in my grandmother's kitchen, which I cannot tell you how much joy it gives me. My topic today is a little bit difficult for me to talk about, but it's something that I've wanted to do for a while now. Sorry, dog's barking. So yeah, it's something that I wanted to do for a while and I've wanted to talk about this for a while. What triggered this video for me is that me and Emery were watching Finn and Casper's videos on addiction. And it was all based around, you know, alcohol and drugs mainly. And Finn mentioned his addiction to Iron Brew, and he also mentioned that he had an eating disorder. And I'm probably not going to get a better opportunity to start talking about this topic than that conversation. So what I want to talk about is food addiction and relationship with food. Okay. So this is quite difficult for me to be admitting on YouTube in a video for people to freely see, but I have a food addiction. I am a food addict. I am an overeater and I do not have a healthy relationship with food. I haven't had a healthy relationship with food for a very, very long time, but it is something that I'm working on a lot over the last few months, and especially the more recent past, and I feel that I'm getting to a very healthy place. My personal journey with food and food addiction is you know, one that's been there my whole life. As a child, I was bigger and I was bullied a lot by my family. And they used to tell me that I ate too much and I shouldn't be eating this stuff and I shouldn't be eating that stuff and I'm too fat and this and that, you know, etc, etc. Just some pressures that should not be put on a child. But I wouldn't say that I was eating an unhealthy amount or that it was out of control at that point. So when I was about 14, 15, my eating habits started to become a lot more unhealthy. My relationship with food became more negative, I guess. So my first major relationship problems with food was around that age. I became anorexic. So I stopped eating. I wouldn't eat, and when I would eat, it would be really, really extremely portioned amounts of food. I tried to eat as little as possible, and when I did eat, I picked to eat things that I liked. So obviously it was still based on calories, but I would much rather pick a piece of chocolate or some jellies to eat than something healthy to eat. I was eating very little calories, but the calories that I was eating, I was picking to be the most delicious and most tasty that they could possibly be. And that went on for a good while. My weight plummeted a good bit, and I was really unhappy, I was really depressed, and I was really unhealthy. When my mother did finally notice, she told me that I either had to go see a counsellor or I had to fix myself. So I said that I would fix myself and I would work on it and become healthier. And I did do that. In the struggle to start eating again and to start being more comfortable with food, obviously it wasn't all to do with food, there was also a lot of body image issues there and self-hate, so eating was quite difficult for me. I was going through phases of bulimia and I was binge eating and vomiting and then not eating, and it was quite unhealthy. But I gained weight and, you know, I ate more meals with the family, so it sort of became something that my mum didn't really think too much about anymore. And I guess it was something that I stopped thinking about as much as well. I was eating, so that meant I was healthy. And I probably was eating healthily for a while, and you know, there was always been ups and downs. But in the last few years, with my depression getting worse and going on medication and everything like that, I seem to have gone the opposite direction, and I became an overeater and a binge eater, and my diet consisted, I would say, 60% of candy and sugar. And it wasn't that I was over eating regular foods, it was that I was eating too much of bad things. So I would eat a bag of candy, I would eat a bar of chocolate and things like that. And not up until the last few months have I realised how unhealthy my relationship with food is. You know, to me it always seemed like an okay thing to, once I open a bag of jellies, that I can't stop until I finish it. But you know, I've learned that that's the phenomenon of craving, that is a habit of someone who is addicted. You know, that is addiction. I just want to say that I am getting better, and it is something I'm working on, and it's something that I look forward to. And I haven't eaten candy in a few months, and it's really exciting, and I feel so much better, and I feel so much healthier and happier, and I'm enjoying food more. But what I want to bring up as a topic of discussion is basically food and food addiction and our relationship with food. Food surrounds our life 24/7. For a lot of us, it's not as simple as it just being food. It takes over and it becomes something we obsess about. And I think, oh, what's happening to my face? I went really bright there. I think a lot more people have issues with food than we realise, or than they realise, because it's not a taboo, or it's not something that people even think about. I know for me, I didn't really think about it that much. I wasn't like severely, extremely obese, so I didn't, you know, think about it that much. But really it does affect your health, and it does ruin your life. It can ruin your life. So what I would really love, you know, get a conversation going about food and healthy eating and healthy living, and how much that all encompasses everything you do in every single day, even what you eat. This is an issue that so many people nowadays struggle with. And I think there's probably a lot of people watching this and on the channel who struggle with similar issues, or issues with eating in general. And I think it would be great to get a conversation started about it, and maybe we can, you know, all help each other out and learn from each other, and know that it does get better. So I look forward to your responses, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!
Today we're talking about food addiction and relationships with food. I'm so glad this topic was brought up, like so glad, because it's a huge part of my life. My relationship with food, it's way too complicated for me to be happy about, but it's a problem nonetheless, and I believe I can tackle it eventually. Like Jess, I have found that this has been an ongoing struggle throughout my life. It's began as young as my childhood, 6 years old maybe. I found it wasn't so much an issue amongst my family, or my immediate family anyway. The struggle kind of began as I entered school. And yeah, children can be cruel, so I was bullied. This is a whole different topic altogether, but kids can be ridiculous. Like, I had someone when I was 6 years old tell me I should go to Jenny Craig, and I didn't even know what the fuck that was. So I wasn't offended until later in my life when Mum explained, oh, hey, you said this to me once, and I was like, what? I didn't know what Jenny Craig was. So I was a little bit more oblivious as a child, but I definitely gained an understanding that I was different and they were picking on me for it later in life. As a result of my food addiction as a child, I was being bullied in primary school, and I couldn't really understand it for a long time because my mum always made it out as though, oh, it doesn't matter, whereas kids were saying, hey, it does matter, you're fat. I think it was in my later years, maybe when I became a teenager, that I realised it was because of what I was eating, and I didn't have any control over it until I was probably 15. And my sister and I are both very much overeaters. Still are to an extent, except I think I've got a healthier hold on it now. I found I was almost fearing my addiction to it. I became aware I was addicted to food, and I just didn't want any part of it. So I became very fearful of food, and for a long time I was probably only eating one thing a day, and it was something very small. I mean, I love food. I couldn't sustain that kind of lifestyle, so I was very quick to eat back normally, and my weight's always fluctuated, and so has my sister's. So, I mean, it's hard. I don't feel like my willpower is great. My sister probably really experienced the worst of it. Her eating disorder followed a few years after mine, and it affected everything about her. Her fear of how addicted she was to food just made her go a complete other way. She hardly ate. It affected her moods. I felt like I was always talking to someone else, like she wasn't the same person. And I think we both jumped to those extremes because we felt like we needed a quick fix. I don't feel like I just had a solution where one day I was like, oh, I love food and I'm okay to say it. Like, I was fearful of it for a really long time. The calorie counting didn't stop for years. After having gone through the extremes where my sister and I just learned how to starve, and we realized that wasn't for us. That's why we started eating normally again. But the fear of food was still there. And we would often, like, I guess, we'd approach it really badly. For instance, we'd maybe be watching a movie and we'd both want to binge eat. So we'd support that and be like, oh, let's just get this, but we'll get laxatives for later. So we were really badly abusing laxatives for quite a while as well. And that would kind of, I found that we were giving in to our addictions, but we'll kind of reassuring it with the laxatives and thinking, oh, it'll be okay because we've got these for later. I mean, this is really hard to admit, but to this day, I still hold on to a lot of those old habits. It's been embedded in me for years, so I still feel like it's going to take a lot to overcome that. I guess I wish I had more willpower. Maybe it wouldn't be such an issue if I did. The fact of the matter is, I mean, like we were talking last time about stress, you do stress, and for me, a huge band-aid to stress is food and comfort eating or binge eating. And I want to be able to allow myself to have something to aid that without overeating. It's funny because when you think about food, really, it keeps us alive. Like, it's the fuel to our bodies. So we really should be caring about what goes in it. But I guess the way I look at food is that I want it to be delicious. Anyway, that's about it. I'd love to hear what other people have to say, so catch you later.
Hey everyone, we're talking about food addiction today, and I've tried to film this a few times, but I haven't felt quite comfortable, so this is another one of those last resort webcam videos. I put my hand up to be a contributor on this topic because I know a lot of people who suffer from eating disorders, and I also have experience myself with an eating disorder, so I know what it's like. But as soon as I agreed to do it, I suddenly became fucking terrified because there's so much shame around eating disorders, and I just suddenly had this rush of fear, like that I was going to be judged, or that your perceptions of me might change based on whatever I had to say. And I know that this is a safe environment, and I know that you guys don't care, what problems I have, because we all have problems. But it's just something that's so deeply ingrained in my psyche. Eating disorder, shame. I guess it's because I've always had a bad relationship with food since I was a little girl. In that, I grew up in a household filled with women who were constantly preoccupied with how much space they were taking up, and always planning to get thinner, and, restricting calories, counting calories, always trying to achieve a goal somewhere in the future, at which point they thought they would be happy with themselves and achieve some sort of contentment with their bodies, but that day never arrived. So it was just year after year of poor self-esteem and being subjected to other people's self-esteem issues, and it rubs off on you. My personal experience is that food is something that I'm not necessarily addicted to, in the sense that I need to eat every day compulsively, but that when I have an emotional trauma or an emotional upheaval, I abuse food as a form of self-destruction and as a form of self-sabotage. So, for example, 2 years ago, I became a vegetarian, and I went on this really healthy path of eating all healthy vegetarian meals, and I lost a lot of weight, and I was going towards a version of myself that I had always had in mind, and I was really close to getting there. I think I thought that once I got there, all my problems would disappear. But about 10 months into this healthy lifestyle, something happened emotionally, like a trauma. And that illusion that I had, that I was working towards happiness, was shattered. And suddenly I started abusing food again. And I started drinking heavily before I went to sleep and piling on weight. And that led to other eating disorders that I won't go into, but it was pretty messed up. And then there was a lot of shame in the fact that, I had lost all that weight, and people were commenting on how good I was looking, and then all of a sudden it was coming back, and the damage that I did then I'm still dealing with now, and it's gonna be like another few months before I'm back on the track that I was 12 months ago. Anyway, I don't have that much more to contribute to this topic. It is a sensitive topic for me. I do have some hope that this was relatable, however. I mean, I know that people don't tend to talk about weight issues very much and food addiction issues because it's embarrassing and it's shameful, but I feel your pain. Alright, well, have a good one, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Let's go out back and plant a family tree.